Well, I just want to make one more video just to emphasize something. This is some pretty basic stuff here, but I left off with this notion of a sound argument. Sound argument is one where the premises are all true and the reasoning is valid. The reason that soundness is important is because conclusions are important, and conclusions are important insofar as we want to know what is true. The whole point of an argument is to establish something as true. And so I thought maybe we could just think a little bit, as we certainly will be in this course, about truth. Big word, deep word, but in a certain way, manageable. And one of the ways that we make the concept of truth manageable is that we say that truth is a property of statements. That is, we don't think of truth as some big metaphysical concept, but rather we just say that, truth is really about language. And truth and falsity they're both concepts. They're properties of statements. And in arguments, we're trying to prove that some things are true and that perhaps, trying to prove that other things are false. That is the point, after all, right? I mean, other than that, it's a kind of a game. And in the second week of the course, we'll be reading two classic articles about abortion, one of which is meant to establish that abortion is defensible, that it's something which can be done, and another one that wants to establish that abortion is immoral, at least in most cases. It may be that one is right and the other is wrong. It may be that they're both right, because maybe the two arguments are compatible. That's one of the things I'd like you to think about. And they're very good, I think, very classic essays, very good essays. And we'll be analyzing the arguments. But at the end of the day, we want to know for ourselves. We want to decide for ourselves whether abortion is immoral or not. So at the end of everything, what we're trying to find out is truth. And that's what argument is supposed to help us to find out with some degree of assurance what is true and what is false. But truth, again, we're saying is a property of statements. And, if we think about theories of truth, you could say that the earliest in Western philosophy theory of truth is that truth is saying what is. Falsity is saying what is not. If I say, this is a statement, right? That's what the quotations are for. If I make the statement, Jane has red hair, and in reality, Jane does have red hair, then my statement is true. But if Jane has green hair, then my statement is false. This is more or less the idea of truth as correspondence. That is, that we make true statements when the things that we say actually match up with the way the world actually is. And that falsity is when the things that we say do not match up with the way the world actually is. So what's taken for granted there is that in some way or another, on the one hand, we have language, which is the statement. And on the other side, we have the world, reality. And that we can decide, in some cases we certainly can. If I say that Jane has red hair, and you look at her and her hair is bright green with not a hint of red, then I think we're pretty justified in saying that my statement is false, because we can compare my use of language, the actual statement, with the way the world is. That is the color of Jane's hair. And then they don't match up. So my statement is false. If I say Jane has green hair and you look at her hair and it's the same color as the leaves on a tree in summer, or, what else is green? Green thing, then my statement is true. So sometimes that seems to work. A lot of times it seems to work. But as we'll see, right away, moral statements, statements about art, aesthetic statements, basically any statements where we talk about value, something being good, something being bad, it makes the whole thing problematic, because it's not as simple as just looking at the world, I suppose. Same thing with politics, right? We talk about the just and the unjust, the expedient and the inexpedient, the fair and the unfair, the wise and the unwise. If I say that Jane has red hair, we can all just look. If I say that Trump is a good president, well, doesn't have to be Trump. But, some of you would vociferously disagree with that. And I would too, actually. But politics is not part of what we're doing here, so it doesn't matter. But, okay, can you just look at the world somehow and establish that that statement is true or false? Or is it a much more complicated thing? If I say that Rashomon is a great movie, which I believe, I just saw it last night, actually. It was great. I thought it was great. I've seen it before. I'll see it again because I think it's great. What do I mean by great? Beautiful, a masterpiece, a work of art. All the things may be true, but how would I establish it? How would I prove it? And if I thought it was a bad movie or a mediocre movie, an overrated movie, or in some way a flawed movie, well, certainly you can argue for those things. And the whole point of the course is you can pretty much argue for anything. In the sense that you can provide a rational basis for most of your beliefs about anything. You can provide some sort of argument to support your beliefs about anything: morality, politics, economics, history, science, art. But it becomes problematic. You can't, if you can just sort of show somebody, but if they don't see its greatness, then you have to sort of find a way to provide reasons. So at the end of the day, what we're doing here is we're looking for truth. And the idea is that argumentation, rational discourse, thinking, rational thinking can actually help us to discover truth. But as we'll see, it can be a very complicated matter.